for joining me live here on the Creative Hive Facebook page, and welcome if you're watching the replay of this video as well. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll share a little bit about myself before I get into my 5 tips on working with kids at home so that some of you can have a chance to join in. My name is Christina Dennis, and I have a blog and a YouTube channel called The DIY Mummy. And I started this blog back in 2009, so 11 years ago. And what catapulted the blog was that I was a graphic designer before kids. And I loved it. I loved doing artsy stuff and design. And then when I had my children, when I had my first daughter in 2009, I sold that company because it was just a little bit too much. The deadlines and things, which is ironic now that I look back, but the deadlines and things I felt were a little bit too much with a new baby. So had my baby, and I loved being a mom. I still do love being a mom, but I needed that creative outlet, and I love being an entrepreneur. I just love it. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. You have, if you're an entrepreneur, you just have like this entrepreneur spirit that wants to burst out, and you have a hard time just sitting at home. Even when you have babies, you just want to, you don't want to do something. And that was how I felt about 6 months after my first daughter was born. That's when I started my blog, thediymommy.com. And at first it was just that creative outlet for me to write about making things for my baby. So I first started writing about how to make baby dresses, how to make bibs, how to make homemade baby food, DIY baby things. And then eventually a few years later, I started writing about other DIY topics. So I wrote about home decor, about baking, about DIY fashion, IKEA hacks. And then the blog slowly grew from there. And then we probably all remember sort of this shift in the blogging industry when it turned into, it turned from a hobby into a business, probably around 2009, 2010, or sorry, that was when I started, was 2009, but around 2013, 14 was when blogging started to become a legitimate business. So, the blog became a business. I was kind of doing part-time hours, and then I moved to full-time hours, all while having my kids. So I had my first daughter, then a second, and then a third, and the blog, and then the YouTube channel, and then all the social channels were during that time. So that's kind of my history. I'm feel very, very lucky to be able to have worked mostly at home. I'll have some meetings here and there with prospective sponsors and things, but mostly I do work at home, and I feel very, very lucky to have been able to work at home over the course of raising my girls. So the blog basically grew at the same time as my girls grew. So I've always had a newborn, a toddler, and preschoolers at home while I've been working. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, because I know that I'm not the only one in this position right now. So many of us have been looking at working from home. How can we work at home with our kids? I'll be honest, it's definitely a juggle. I always say the juggle is real when you're working at home with kids, because it's a little tricky, and it's so much different than working at home alone. So I wanted to talk about that. And over the course of the past 10 years, while working at home with children, doing a part or a full-time job, I found a few hacks and tricks that have helped me out. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. So please feel free to wave at me in the comments, post any questions, any comments, send me hearts, all of that, and I will try to answer live. Otherwise, if you're watching the replay, just comment down below this video, and I will pop in and make sure to answer all of the questions that you have while I talk about all of this. So lots of us are facing this reality. We're going to be working at home with our kids for an indefinite period of time. Not only are we moving our businesses to our homes, but our kids are not in school right now. So we have to juggle helping our kids learn things. We have to juggle keeping our businesses thriving. And that's I want to share 5 tips for that that I've found over the years to be helpful. So I'm hoping that these things will ease your stress as you transition and help you get into that groove of working at home with your kids together. So the first thing and the most important thing, and I knew I had to start with this, and I saw Carrie Skelton's live last week, and it was so similar to what I'm saying now. So I feel like all of us know this is important. Number 1 is give yourself grace. I think that is the most important thing right now as business owners and parents at home. Right now, we're collectively facing so many stressors right now. I know I'm feeling very stressed right now. We've lost work. Events that we've been looking forward to have been canceled. The kids' school has been canceled, and even something as simple as grocery shopping can be a nightmare. We're seeing so many things that are helpful here on social media. Like people are posting all these educational things and lists and all these schedule ideas, but and those can be good, but I urge you not to feel pressured by all those things and to just remember to give yourself a lot of grace in this period. Don't feel bad to take a day off every now and then. We have these jobs, we have kids to teach, but I think it's important to take like those, self-care days and those days where you might just be vegging around watching Netflix and just cuddling your kids and loving your kids. And I think that is totally okay. On Instagram last week, my Instagram is just at the DIY Mommy. I shared a few things that have been helping me get through these feelings of stress and anxiety. So check that out. I'll make sure to link to that down below after this video is done. There's just things like deep breathing, yoga, picking up a repetitive craft, things like that. So don't forget to do those things and give yourself a ton of grace. Number 2, tip on working with kids at home is to create a schedule. So even though I said grace first, keep grace in mind while you're creating the schedule. I certainly feel that having a schedule can ease everybody's emotions and help everybody settle into this new normal. And you need to create something that works with your family. So whether your family likes very rigid, like hour by hour activities, or whether you want to create something looser, just keep that in mind when you're creating a schedule. So for our family, I like to time block in hour periods, and I have a little schedule. I posted it on my blog today. It's an example. I don't think there's a one schedule fits all solution for everybody. You have to know your family. But if you want to check out my blog, the DIYmommy.com, I have it on there today. And that's kind of what we're doing. It has to be customized to you, your schedule. And I just put mine on a Google Sheet so that I can change it when something's not working, because we're taking it day by day like everybody else. If you have younger children, you might be able to work throughout the day, an hour or two when they nap, when they sleep. I certainly did that a ton when my kids were little, is just working while they're sleeping. If you have older kids, they might be able to keep themselves occupied for longer than mine can. Mine can maybe only go an hour and a half, and then they need mom. So again, really work with what you have, what's going on. And don't forget to leave room for those down days in your schedule, those days where you just might need to just throw everything out the window and just take care of each other. And also maybe moving things around throughout the day. Leave room for that as well. My third tip for working with kids at home is to try to make time to focus on either your kids or your work exclusively throughout the day. So I find that for me personally, I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but for me personally, I need to focus 100% on something to do a good job. So I find it really hard to work when my kids are asking me for help every couple seconds. So try throughout the course of the day to make those periods where you can be exclusively focused on work, exclusively focused on kids. If you know there's going to be times where you can't do that. So maybe is there an hour or two where you can close your office door and work and your kids are going to be okay on their own? I definitely depend on screens for this often. But then also, is it possible for you to close that office door, put that phone away and focus exclusively on your kids, because I feel like that is important, especially right now when we have all these emotions going on. I'll be honest, I miss childcare and I miss school a lot when it comes to work. I certainly relied on that with the kids all going to school, my youngest having childcare a couple days a week. I was able to have that focus. But I feel now, after shifting a few things, I can do exclusive work chunks throughout the day. It's just looking a little different than it did before. So for me, what it looks like is usually about hour-long sessions where the kids are playing outside. They're playing on their computers, and then I am able to be in my office and do the work that I need to exclusively focus on that way. And then after I'm able to do that, I can put that all away and focus exclusively on my children. And I think that is really, really important. So for that kid time, I know it's probably most easiest to do screen time, and we certainly do a good amount of that now, and I think that is totally okay. But here are some ideas of things that you could do with your kids at home when you're giving them that one-on-one time. So baking together, that is actually quite fun if you can just leave that control freakness at home. Sometimes I want to grab my kids' hands and help them bake. No, just leave them and show them what to do. I think it can be a really great experience. Doing a craft together is a great idea. I have 14 craft ideas that I blogged about last week. I'll link to that below after this as well. Playing outside together, so important. I find nature, walking outside right now, is very, very healing. Print out some free activity booklets. Do those with your kids. There are tons of those online right now. Cleaning and organizing kids' bedrooms together. Try to get the kids involved and excited about it. That can be a fun activity. Make a little fairy garden together. I have a DIY for that on my blog as well. Another idea is maybe create some cards or some gifts or little handmade presents for neighbors or elderly friends or family that you can't see right now, but maybe you could drop something off at their door or pop it in the mail for them. Playing video games together, watching YouTube together. Those are some good ideas as well. One video game that we like to play together is Just Dance, because it's good exercise too. And that's my final one, is exercising together. So whether it's a video game, that's a lot of fun, or another thing that I find really fun with the girls is to pop on our favorite Google Play music list and dance in the living room. And that's a great exercise. My fourth tip for working at home with kids is to try to involve your kids in your work if you can. If your job has something in it that maybe you could help, that your kids could help you with, and help I say in quotes because I know they're not going to be that productive with your job, but at least you're keeping them occupied and you're sort of working with them. It's going to depend on your job. It's going to depend on the age of your kids. But for me, there's been lots of ways that I can involve my kids. And it sometimes, well, often turns out to be a lot of fun. I might not get as much work done, but I find it pretty satisfying to be able to marry work and motherhood. It's always such a magical thing when that happens. So some things, for example, are my oldest daughter, she's 11. She is very interested in photo editing and video editing. So she has asked me to help her to learn that, and that a lot of what I do is photo editing and video editing, so I've been able to show her how to do that, and that's been a lot of fun, and I feel like that's a skill that she could use later on in years that would be really great for her. Another example is when I'm working on room makeovers to share on the blog. I like to have the kids involved in those as well, whether it's planning and sourcing out things, or even I've had the kids help paint. Had to paint over some things, but that's fun too. Some other ideas that kids might be able to help you with your job would be organizing paperwork, shredding paperwork, cleaning and organizing your home office, and try to brainstorm other ways maybe that your kids could help you out. And totally related to this, try to have your kids help you with chores and upkeep of your house throughout the day. That's really going to ease your burden trying to do all the things. Get your kids in on that. And And it's also going to help them learn those skills that they need for later on in life. And I actually time block that into our schedule as well. And I use screen time as kind of a prize for that. And that seems to work. My final tip number 5 for working with kids at home is to learn to say no or yes later. Working at home with kids can be tricky. Unexpected things can come up. There can be sicknesses, there can be issues. You might have to adjust how much work you can take on. Let's be honest. I'm not going to be doing the same workload I did a couple weeks ago as I am now. It's just how it is. So I found it crucial to say no to certain projects that have come across my plate that I just can't do with kids at home. So on-site work, really long meetings, really long phone calls, anything that requires my house to be spotless, that's just not going to happen right now. And that's okay. And then I've also learned to say a yes later to pretty much everything else. With all 3 of my girls staying at home, it's going to take me longer to finish most of my work. It's true. That's just how it is. And I feel like most people, I mean, we're all in this together. I know we say this a lot to each other, but we truly are. And most other brands and business owners you're working with and clients are going to understand this situation that you're in. So it's going to take you longer to finish your work, and try to schedule your own time with that in mind. I don't want to put any more pressure on myself, and I don't think you should put more pressure on yourself either. Like I said, I think most people are going to respect and understand these boundaries. So those were my 5 tips. I hope you guys found those helpful. Overall, working at home with kids, yes, it can be a tricky juggle, but I feel like it certainly makes for a rich at-home experience, and it's going to keep you nice and busy and occupied, which I think is really nice for right now. I feel so lucky that I've been able to work at home with my girls as they've grown up, and I hope that you experience this joy as well. Yes, there's going to be some not joyous moments and some tricky moments, but yeah, there's also going to be some really joyful moments as you work at home with your kids. Being a mom and being a DIY decor blogger, YouTuber, I love both of those things, and I feel so privileged to be able to marry those things. And it's so fun to be able to do both of those things in tandem. So I hope these tips have helped you guys navigate this new reality of working at home with kids. It can be a tough adjustment, but give yourself grace. Number 1, grace is very, very important. Give your kids a lot of love. All they need to know is that you love them and support them, and I think you will be a-okay. So again, I'll leave some links down below with some resources for you guys. Hope that has helped you out, and take care this week. Bye.